lot of AI. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get my screen shared, and I'm going to mirror to the training room. Hold on, stop mirroring there. Hello, how are you? We got two in the room. Hello, Miss Terry. Thanks for hopping on. All right, so I am just figuring out, I am mirroring my screen in the training room. Now I'm going to share my screen with all of you so you can see my slides. I'm not the most tech savvy in the world, so just bear with me. Oops. All right, can everybody see my screen? Perfect. So while I'm doing this, I do have Renee is monitoring the chat, and I have my phone here. She'll text me if there's any questions, but I love just open conversation. So at any time you have a question, because I'm not going to be able to see you raising like the virtual hands in Zoom, it's okay. Just speak, get off mute, and just say, hey, Britt, like, what about this? Or if you've got something that's working for you, I would love for you to share. I love collaboration, so please don't hesitate to come off mute. I love as much participation as possible. So if you're feeling vulnerable today and you're willing to share some personal strategies or stories, please hop in at any time. So we call this class Win the Week, which is from, I'm going to say it's from some book. I can't put my finger on which one at the moment, but it's something that was taught to me, actually first taught to me by Drew Richmond from the Dave Hook team. And then when I got into leadership at Keller Williams of Central PA, my operating principal, Matt Madden, also taught me some strategies that he uses to win the week. And then as I've grown, I've kind of curated it to match my own personal style. And that's what I would suggest for all of you is take components of this that would work for you. But I also want you to reflect on your own life and where do you need to start winning the week? So I think it can look differently for everybody, and it's truly about how can you set your week more intentionally. So here's our agenda-ish. I'm going to give you 3 basic steps to win the week to make it simple. And the first question that I want you to reflect on, and feel free if you're comfortable coming off mute, and we got 2 folks in the room with us, Heather and Skylar. Feel free to chime in. Are you leading your week or are you surviving it? And differently said is, do you feel like your week is controlling you and you're in constant react mode? Or do you feel like you're walking into your week and you know what to expect and how to handle what comes at you? Anybody willing to share? Okay, tell me more. So Heather says in the room that she does plan her week, but she still feels like she's surviving it. So tell me more.
I feel like even with as much planning as you do in real estate, everything just kind of gets jumbled and switched around, or things come up that are priority over priority. So it's like I like in the morning so I can map out my whole day, know exactly what's supposed to happen, and things to happen, and it just throws the whole schedule off. So, like that I'm surviving and trying to get.
I love that. So Heather said, in real estate, she may have her whole day planned, but then one thing can happen and that becomes the new priority and it can throw her whole day off. So we'll definitely cover that. But that's a great one. And that it still happens, right? We can't completely block all the random and miscellaneous, but the more proactive we are with how we set up our week, I think the more energy we can have to handle the fires that do come our way. So, a little bit about me for those who don't know me. I am Brittany Guiles. I am a wife and mom, first and foremost. I'm also the team leader of Keller Williams of Central PA. So, for those of you who aren't sure of the brokerage structure, that means I oversee the entire brokerage. So, I don't have my own real estate team, but we are a brokerage that has real estate teams and independent agents in them. So, my job is to grow the market center through growing our top producing agents, as well as through recruiting talent to our brokerage. I'm also the founder of the Central PA's Women's Mastermind group, which a lot of you are here through that group, so welcome. And I love to teach this because I feel like I learned the hard way that hustle without intentionality is what leads to burnout. And I think win the week is one way that you can be really intentional with how you approach your week. So the first thing, step one, is simply to review your calendar. And I would pick one day per week to do this. For me, I like to do that Sunday evenings. For some, they like to do this Monday mornings, but you ideally want to do it before your work week starts. Maybe that's on a Saturday for you before you head into that next week. So the very first step, like I said, is I'm going to start looking at my calendar, and also another tool I'm going to show you here shortly, which is the 411. And I'm going to go, what are my priorities this week? And you might just kind of brain dump all the things that you know you need to do. And you're going to also look at your calendar, because if you're like me, throughout the past week, you already started kind of scheduling things for this next week. So there's already things booked in your schedule. I'm also going to look for, I know a lot of us are also moms in the room. Is there something out of the ordinary this week? So, for example, my daughter Kaylin, she is going to be on stage crew for the Addams Family Play at Cumberland Valley School District at Eagleview Middle. And that is definitely out of the ordinary for me. So, multiple nights this week, I'm going to be running her to stage crew and then picking her up. So that's definitely something where I got to go, okay, do I need to move some things around to make sure I can get her there? Where am I overbooked? So this happens where I might have two appointments that are too close together because I won't have enough time to get from point A to point B. So it's like, how can I figure out where those overlaps are now so I can fix it today and not in the moment when you're like, oh crap, how am I going to be in two places at once? Another thing that I like to look at is, do I need help with the kids' schedules? So that's when I might say, okay, I might have to ask my husband or a grandma if they can help me with picking kids up or dropping off. Or maybe I can coordinate with one of my kids' friends and see if they can help with carpool. And then my favorite question is, what can I delegate, delete, or reschedule? So I think we're all guilty of probably saying yes more often than we should. And you have the right to, just because you have committed to something in your calendar, you do have the right to go back and say, hey, you know what? I've overcommitted. I actually can't do that thing. So when you're looking at your calendar, are there meetings that could be turned into emails? Are there meetings that maybe you shouldn't be leading that someone else should? Is there something that you thought was a priority, but now that you're looking at your calendar, you're realizing, you know what, this is an opportunity to explore. I'm going to put this off to the side. And when I get some capacity back, maybe I'll revisit. Or I'm just going to delete it. It's actually not that important. I don't need to be doing this right now. I don't know why I signed up for it in the first place. I'll sometimes sign up for classes and then I'll realize, you know what, I really don't need this class right now. And then I delete. When you're looking at your priorities, you want to make sure you're using a tool like the 411, because your 411 is going to tell you what are your actual priorities for the week. So this is a tool that should already be done for the year. So when you're doing your weekly review, you're only focusing on this bottom quadrant. But if you've never used it before, I am going to just quickly walk you through it. So up top, you want to have your annual goals. So your goals for 2026 for business, for financial. So that's personal financial goals for your personal life. And those could be areas in your personal life that you just want to make sure you have some intentionality. So if you've got health goals, maybe you have a personal reading goal. Maybe, I have one actually around being more social and making sure that I'm spending more time with my friends. So anything that's more personal, you can put there. And then growth in leadership. I think all of us are on this call because we want to grow and develop. So, what is a growth and development goal look like for the year, for the month, and for the week? And attending this session is something that you absolutely made a priority because you're here. So you would have listed that in week 4 as a task to move the needle forward towards this monthly goal. So I'm just going to give one example and break it down for you. So let's say we have a lot of agents on this call. Let's say that for your business goal, you want to sell 50 homes for the year. You're going to put 50 homes at the top in the yearly goal. Every month, you need to redo this and say, okay, what do I need to do in the month of March? Because March is next week, folks. What do I need to do in the month of March to help me move the needle closer to that unit goal? And maybe that's I need to implement sending emails to all my past clients. Or maybe it's I want to do quarterly events. So in your monthly goal for March, you might say plan next event. Okay. And then every week on your Sunday or your win the week time block, you're going to go, what do I have to do this week to move the needle forward towards that monthly goal? So let's say your monthly goal was to plan an event. Week 1 might be simply to research micro event ideas in the Central PA region. And then week 2, it might be, okay, I'm going to decide on an event. So maybe I'm going to do a first-time homebuyers workshop. And because you're going to do the first-time homebuyers workshop, now you need to secure a location and a date. And so that would be week 2. And then in week 3, it might be to create marketing and invitations and start sending them out to your database. But I would encourage you to not plan out all 4 weeks. I would encourage you to just do 1 week at a time during your win the week time block. And here's where you kind of yo-yo. I go in between my calendar and my 411. And the reason why I start with my calendar is because there's already stuff booked. And so I likely need to start creating some white space so I can then make sure I have time for the tasks on my 411. I want to take a pause here. Does anybody have questions on the 411 so far? And if you see, there's a QR code in the bottom right corner where you can actually get a spreadsheet template of this. Next, like I said, I'm going to go back to my calendar and I'm going to make sure that I have some work on the business time blocks, which you can see in the Friday column. This is where I've got time for those 411 priorities. But some of those time blocks might be meetings with other people. Those priorities might be things that I have to do earlier in the week. So I'm going to go back to my calendar and again, kind of make sure where can I fit this in so I know that it gets done. The saying is if it's not in your calendar, it doesn't exist. So you got to treat it like an appointment with a client. It's just with yourself. So you know you're moving the needle forward. Sometimes when I talk about time blocking, it freaks people out because your calendar starts to look like this. Sorry, I have to keep moving this little Zoom box here. There we go. But that's the whole point of doing this exercise is when your calendar does start to look like this, you go back to those questions you asked yourself earlier. What can I delete so I can make time for these 411 priorities? Again, where am I overbooked? Do I have enough white space so I'm not burnout? What can I reschedule? So I do this twice. It's kind of like, I'm trying to think of a good way, like an analogy for this. It's kind of like cleaning your house. You might vacuum one spot and then realize you got to go over it a second time to really get all the pet hair up. You're doing the same thing with your calendar. You really got to go through it twice to ensure you've got those priorities. And I'm big on with you got to have fresh eyes because you might look at it one time and not see certain things that you could move around. But then when you have to layer in those priorities again and you say, I'm going to make sure these get done, it's going to force you to question other appointments that maybe you didn't the first time around. A key component to this isn't just a meeting with yourself. You got to get on the same page with your family. So my husband and I do this together because I need to know what's on his schedule and he needs to know what's on my schedule. And we're going to sit here and compare. Okay, I can get Kaylin from stage crew on Tuesday and Thursday. Can you do it Wednesday? And if he says, nope, I can't do it Wednesday, okay, great. Can you call Nana and make sure Nana can pick up the kids on Wednesday? Where this might seem so simple, but what used to happen is I wouldn't do this and it would be Wednesday at 3 o'clock. And I would go, oh crap, who's going to get Kaylin from stage crew? So this just helps you work out all the potential fires and issues now so you feel more prepared because inevitably fires are going to pop up every single day in our businesses. When you have white space in your calendar, that's when you can handle the fires. And because you've already sorted out some roadblocks, you have more energy to deal with them. Some quick tools that I use. We are big on a Google Calendar. My husband and I share our Google Calendars with each other. So that way I can easily schedule things that require the both of us to attend. And sometimes in one swoop, I can see myself if, okay, we have a scheduling conflict, we're going to need, you can see in the middle, I got grandparents to help us pick up the kids. I know that's not a luxury that everybody has. So we often say it takes a village. Who's your village that can help you in those times when you need help picking up those kids? And don't be afraid to ask. I think for some reason, society has gotten to a point where we feel like we have to do everything ourselves. And I would encourage you, it's okay to ask for help. Your friends actually love it when you call them up and say, hey, I trust you enough to help me with this. Can you help me with my kids? We love that. So that's a big one. It's just who's your village? And then also it's kind of spendy, but we have a hearth and we absolutely love it. So I make my kids time block. You might make fun of me, but my kids' appointments, they have their own calendars in our Google Calendar. And I have been teaching them, I add them to their own appointments so they can start to learn how to use that calendar effectively. The hearth hangs in our dining room, and we can see everybody's week at a glance together. This is it's the sky, it's like skylight, but it's huge. So the visual for me is just more appealing. When it's like on sleep mode, you can have it just be a big family photo. So it looks pretty when it's on sleep mode. But my daughter, she's 12 and she gets herself off the bus now and she gets her little sister off the bus for me. And she knows she can go to the hearth and she can go, oh, yeah, mom should be home around 5:30 simply by looking at the calendar. So they know that they can go there to know about when we're going to get home. If they texted me and I haven't responded, they can say, oh, yeah, mom's in a meeting right now. So it's been a complete blessing. So I highly encourage you've got something for your family that you can easily all look at and visually see, okay, this is where everybody's at right now. Ah, this one is so huge. How many of you have struggled with it's Tuesday, 2 o'clock, and you go, I have no idea what I'm going to eat for dinner or make for dinner. And you're like, okay, looks like I'm picking up a pizza on the way home, right? Like, we've all been there. So now what I do is I actually use this time to also meal plan. You're pretty clear on what's going on in your calendar. So I know that Tuesday and Thursday this week, I have to do something that's quick and easy because those are the nights Kaylin has stage crew. So I'm either going to plan a crock pot meal. So that way, when we get home on Tuesday, she can quickly serve herself dinner. So when I come home, she's already fed. And then I can take her to stage crew and she's got a full meal in her belly. So I will plan the whole week's worth of meals. I put them in my calendar as all day events. So they show up at the top of my calendar. And then I will actually, well, I'm getting ahead of myself, but then I'll actually order my groceries on Instacart, whatever I need to make that meal plan work. And I love to just say this, fed is best. So it's okay, moms, if you don't have a huge dinner that's made from scratch every single night of the week. I try to do a big home cooked meal on Sundays that ideally will give leftovers at least one night throughout that week and maybe some lunches for me. And then 1 or 2 nights a week, especially if the schedule's crazy, I'm going to plan a night where, you know what, it's just breakfast, dinner, scramble some eggs and bacon. It takes 15 minutes. The kids always love it. I also we call them Sammy nights. Like we're going to do tuna salad sandwiches, or sometimes it was even peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Like it's just something quick and easy. Um, it's okay to have fend for yourself nights if your kids are old enough. I always have, we're gluten-free and dairy-free in my family. So we always have gluten-free chicken nuggets in the freezer. And that way, if I have a fire and I'm like, you know what, I just don't have it in me tonight, everybody it's fend for yourself. The kids can make their chicken nuggets. So just give yourself some grace. I think sometimes we think, oh my gosh, if I'm not making something from scratch every night, it makes us a bad parent. Like, no, give yourself a break, plan the dinners that take more time and take more love on the days that you have the time and the energy to do so. Here's a QR code for Instacart. I love me some grocery delivery. Heather is shaking her head yes. So during this win the week, when I know what my meal plan is, I literally just go right into my Instacart app and I just add all the groceries that I always know I'm going to need every single week. We all have those staples. If I get too much, it's not a big deal. I can throw extra in the deep freezer. And then whatever kind of random ingredients that I know I may need. And then I ask my husband if there's anything he needs. So we do all of that and win the week. If I know I'm going to need groceries for Sunday dinner, I'll do this part earlier in the day to make sure they're there on time. But other than that, I have them scheduled to be delivered on Monday between 4 and 6, and that usually works out for us. Another tip, I will actually have 2 Instacart deliveries, one to my house, and then I have one to my office. So that way I have all my snacks and stuff to make myself lunches at work. I can't tell you how many times I would order stuff. It would come in my normal grocery delivery at home, and then I would forget the groceries for my work, or I would forget my lunch. So now I just have a week's worth of snacks delivered on Monday to my office. Renee brings them back to me. She knows they're mine. I stock my fridge, and then I always know that I've got snacks and backup lunches if I forget to bring like leftovers from dinner for lunch. So that's my hack. I think it's totally worth the extra $6 you pay for Instacart delivery to know that meals are taken care of. Any questions so far? I feel like I'm going kind of fast, but just chime in if you have any questions. So lastly, and this is probably my favorite part, this is where I kind of go off now. I've gotten on the same page with my husband. He and I are on the same page. The kids and I are on the same page. Meal plan is done. Now this is me time. And I'm going to do some reflecting. So I'm going to think about what worked last week, both personal and professional, what worked in our schedules, um, or just in life in general. I'm going to go over what didn't work. And maybe that's realizing, yeah, I got to leave work at 4, not 4:15. I felt like I was rushing when I left work at 4:15 to get Kaylin to stage crew on time. So you know what? I'm going to give myself some grace, make sure my appointments are done by 4 o'clock. What will you do differently? So this might be when the fires are coming at you, Heather, of being like, okay, I know I have white space on my calendar at 2. I'm going to deal with the fire then. Or if it's really urgent, if you have white space, you can say, okay, I got to deal with this fire right now. But the thing that I was going to do right now, I'm going to just move that time block back to 2. So that way I know it's still going to get done, but that's why it's so important to make sure you have white space in your calendar every day. Otherwise, you're right. Like you feel like you are thrown for a loop. And then I want to make sure you're ending it on a positive note, especially if you're doing this, Sunday evening like I do. I don't want to end Sunday evening feeling like, man, I got a lot of stuff I got to do, and I was a big failure last week. I want to make sure I'm ending on what were my 3 biggest wins, because we all have them. We just got to get better at acknowledging those wins. And then I'm going to end on what was I most grateful for the past week. Some other tools that I find helpful. I have it right here. I use the EOS Life Journal and Planner. It has built in those weekly win the week planning sessions with those same questions outlined. It also has built in monthly clarity breaks where you kind of take win the week and you put it on steroids and you do it for the entire month. Oh, hold on. I'm getting a question from the group. Yes, we will send the 411 worksheet to everybody who said yes to the invite. If you didn't say yes to the invite and you just came in through Women's Mastermind Group, drop your email in the chat. We'll make sure we send that to you. Another helpful tool, I would say for all the parents in the Zoom room and in the physical room is the Greenlight app. So my kiddos have Greenlight. They get paid their chores on a debit card. And the cool thing is during Win the Week, most of their chores just repeat every week. But if there's some extra things that I need them to do that week, I can add it right through the app. And as every day, they know when they get home from school, they have a snack, they do their homework, and then they go to their Greenlight app and they start working through that day's chores. So I don't have to constantly remind them to do their chores. My kids are money hungry, they are money driven. They like that they get paid right away when they check off a chore. It also allows you to do chores for grabs. So like if I know that I want the house vacuumed again, I can just put out like vacuum living room. And then the first kid that grabs the chore gets to do it and they get paid right away.
Does this pop up on your card?
The green light doesn't pop up on the hearth. The hearth does have a chore function where they can just check it off. We did that when they were younger. They use the hearth routines is what they're called. But now that they like being able to check out, they love being able to slide the green light debit card at Target. It also teaches them like budgeting. There's videos in there. So once a week, one of their chores is to watch one of the finance videos in Greenlight, and it's at a kid level. And they see like their savings grow. So it's been really a cool way to teach them about money. but it's also leverage for me because it's teaching them responsibility and taking little tasks off my plate that they can help with. And it's little stuff like make their bed, they help set the table for dinner, they help clear the table from dinner. They both actually know how to do their own laundry. I have laundry sheets, so they look like dryer sheets, but it's detergent, which makes doing for them, it's so simple to do their own laundry. So they each, once a week they do their load of clothes. I help with their bedding because it's just bulky and they're little, trying to get all the bedding off. They walk the dogs when it's nice out. So very simple chores that they do. And the green light app just, I don't know about you guys, but I get tired of having to ask repeatedly to do things. It exhausts me. So the green light app helps with that for the most part. QR code takes you to my link tree that has some of this stuff right on there. But this whole purpose of Win the Week is it's not about doing everything. It's just about doing the right things consistently and with intentionality. And that's where I would encourage you, at the beginning when we asked, are you feeling like you're coming into the week reactive and just reacting to everything that's happening to you? I would write down what are those things that you're constantly feeling that you're behind on. Like for me, it was the meal plan. I constantly felt like I never knew what we were doing for dinner. That's why I made that a part of my win the week. So if there's something you're struggling with, what can you do about that thing in your win the week time block? So that way you feel like, okay, I at least have some intentionality behind it, which at the end of the day, it saves you so much energy. You'll feel as you do this for a couple of weeks, you'll start to feel like, gosh, I've got more energy just because you're not reacting and stressing as much about the stuff that you maybe forgot. So I'd love to hear from the physical room here and the Zoom room. What is the one thing that you're going to implement in the next 24 hours? And just remember, just come off mute if you want to share because I can't see the screen.
Meal plan.
Meal planning. So Skylar said she's going to meal plan. Ooh, and Heather said adding that meal plan to the calendar. Anybody else?
For me, it's definitely going to be getting more intentional about setting aside this time to meet with myself to set up the week. Like
I love that.
I do it, but I don't do it consistently enough.
Yeah, so put that time block in your calendar.
Yep.
And it can
That's
be
what I'm doing.
fun. Drew Richmond, when she taught this to me, she said, hey, like put a face mask on, get a
Mhm.
candle going. Like it can be something and you can make it enjoyable for yourself. It doesn't have to be a chore. It should feel like almost it's a version of self-care, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I like that idea.
I love that.
Yep.
Anybody else? We have a quiet group today.
I have a question.
Oh, go ahead.
The white space in your calendar, what does that look like? Is it 15 minutes, like throughout the day or?
Ideally, you want 1 to 2 hours.
Okay,
One,
like one white chunk.
it could be 1 or 2. Yep. But you want that time for life to life. And if you have nothing going on, like in a perfect day, if you're like, man, this is a smooth day, you could either take that time to just think. You could take that time to just breathe for a minute because we all know that's rare, right? So take it as a break. Because I think as moms, and as women, that's the one thing that we don't do enough. Um, yeah, because we tend to, I was reading I think it's called The Minute Manager Meets the Monkey. And there was part of the book, and he was talking about it was a man, and he was talking about how he was not good at delegating. And because he wasn't good at delegating, his wife was having to take on more of the responsibilities at home, and he was working late. And I kind of sat there for a second, and I was like, good for him, but I am the wife and the mom. And so when I don't delegate well at work, I still have to get those things done at work. And then when I get home, I'm still responsible to get those things done at home. Like, I don't have a wife at home that keeps the responsibilities going, right? So I think that's why this is so important. So if you do get white space, do not feel like you have to be doing something. If you don't have a fire, enjoy it.
I'd like to share
I love, oh,
411.
go ahead. What was
I
that,
like
Judy?
I like the 411 plan, because I like just to put that in perspective each monthly, weekly, and to accomplish it. Also, I want when my kids were younger, we did the meal planning and they helped set the table every night. But what I did was I had like 6 meal plans for each week. I had 6, and I would just rotate those, so I didn't have to
Oh,
do
I
it
love
all the
that.
time. I just had them in a folder and I would just, this is the weekly plan. And so it worked for me. I don't know.
Oh,
But
I love that. And so you had like some staples, but then it wasn't you weren't having it every week, but you
just sit
knew
down and
there's,
figure it out. Yeah. And if I wanted to add something in, I just added it. But yep, it was a set. And then we just worked off of that.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, one thing that I want to get better at is like I think that probably could help, but I have an uncle who he could make like lasagna on Monday, and then by Friday, like his leftovers become this lasagna soup. And it always tastes good. Like it sounds disgusting, but he was always good at like stretching the meals, or if he bought ingredients for the lasagna, he would then know how to take whatever was left over from the ingredients that were unused and like how could he make that a different meal on Wednesday. That's something I'm still personally working on because I always admired that how he could do that. I was like, how do you do that? So I bet you that weekly meal plan would help.
Yeah. And
Anybody else?
I,
Oh, go
my
ahead.
kids have their own houses now, and I'm like, don't you meal plan? Because my one son gets stressed out over getting groceries and stuff. I'm like, I taught you to meal plan. So,
Yeah, you're like, there's a system for that.
yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes we have to learn the hard way. Sometimes we have to learn the hard way. These are just some book recommendations. The ones up top specifically are where I learned the different tactics that we're talking about today. So one is the EOS Life. Super short. I read that in half a day because it's a lot of reflecting questions. So I read that a couple times a year. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. The one thing is great if you really want to get intentional with that 411 tool and time blocking. And then buy back your time. Some of us just need to hire an EA or an admin. And maybe it's just help around the house. Like I finally hired somebody, they come and clean every other week. My kids and I do it in the off weeks because I do think it's important that my kids learn those skills. But I have somebody come in and do like the deep clean every other week. So don't be afraid to leverage or ask for help. And the link there again goes to my link tree. I've got other tools and resources, other training videos, other book recommendations are all in there. You can also contact me through that. But is there any final questions from anybody today? I'm going to hop into chat and just make sure there's nothing in there. Perfect. Yes, I will make sure I email out the 411. Actually, you know what? I'm going to drop it in the chat too, just in case. Let me do that quick. Business. Nope, I called it. Build your business around your life. There's a couple other tabs in this one, so you don't have to use them all, but the 411 tab is in here. Copy link. You're going to get access as a viewer. All you have to do is go to File, make a copy. And when you do that, the copy that you make will become completely editable and private to you. So that way, when you make edits, nobody else sees them. I think what we're going to do going forward, because our agents are really used to Education Tuesdays. So I'm going to probably move us from the last Thursday to the month to either one Tuesday a month, or I might move to quarterly for these sessions just so we can be hyper intentional, and I can make sure that we have high value. I'm going to continue to do the blend of digital training room and in person, because I do think there's benefit to if there's folks that can meet in person for us to get together and just have some community and network a little bit afterwards. But if there's no final questions, I really appreciate everybody being here today.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, Miss Amy. Oh, go ahead, Terry.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Have a great rest of your day, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye.
Bye.